Karo's 15th anniversary album Move Again has arrived in what feels like another legendary revival of K-pop's second generation. 2022 saw the reunions of Gen 2 titans Big Bang, Girls' Generation, 21, Sistar, Kara, and others defying the odds of what's expected within K-pop and the music industry. How did that happen though, and why does it even matter? What's so special about Kara's comeback in all of this? Annyeonghaseyo friends, I'm Jonathan Miller, and welcome back to Jonathan Miller Music, where we help each other become better artists. The second generation of K-pop begins in the early 2000s, as millennials and the internet were growing up. This is the generation that saw the creation and rise of YouTube, CD sales transforming into Spotify streams, cell phones getting smaller then larger again, including the development of the iPhone and touchscreens, the transformation of social media from MySpace to Facebook to Instagram and Vine to Snapchat and to TikTok. The physical world became an increasingly digital one. If you're unfamiliar, K-pop is sort of divided into pretty distinct generations, loosely tied to the time frame in which an act debuted and the point in which K-pop had grown worldwide. Pokemon might be in its 9th generation, but the world of K-pop is about half that currently, with 4. Generation 1 began in the 90s when K-pop was relatively confined within the borders of South Korea. It saw the rise of the internet through the early 2000s and also saw the careers begin for acts like Seoul Taejian Boys, Shinhwa, BoA, SES, HOT, Baby Vox, Diva, Sexkis, Finkel, and many others. During this time, the music industry functioned vastly different than it does today. In fact, this is when the method of training idols before debuting came into existence, which was a technique borrowed and adapted from Johnny & Associates, a dominating record in Japan. Remember, the internet was an infant at this point. People got scouted at shopping malls, talent shows, karaoke bars, etc. No one posted a TikTok that went viral and then labels were fighting to sign you, because that concept didn't exist. Viral videos online were not yet a thing. Furthermore, music industries around the globe were separate for the most part. Getting international fans was hard because they had to see you on TV, hear you on the radio, or watch you live in their own country. If someone sang a Korean translation of an English language song, the likelihood of people noticing was slim because K-pop in the West just didn't overlap. It sounds boring, I'm sure, but we weren't bored in the 90s. We had Tamagotchis and playground rumors about finding Mew under a truck in a Pokemon game to keep us occupied. Gen 1 also saw historical transitions in the way of the September 11th attacks in the US, the 1997 Asian financial crisis, the Y2K fears of computer processing errors as the millennium began, the creation of the euro, and more specifically to this video, the fall of economic barriers between South Korea and Japan. From 1910 to 1945, Japan occupied control of Korea, forcing Koreans into language, culture, forced labor, and other terrible things, and the damaging effects from this time period lasted decades afterward and even still today, leading Korea to eventually ban imports of Japanese media. This was until the 90s, as I explained in great detail in my deep dive on BoA, but basically as tensions between the countries loosened when the turn of the millennium arrived, the door was open and baby BoA stepped right through it. Japan is the world's second largest music market, only behind the USA, meaning it's a big moneymaker if you can find success there. Ever wonder why Japan always gets the bonus tracks or the bonus material for music releases? Well, that actually has to do with import fees. For an American artist, for example, it's actually cheaper to produce CDs within Japan as opposed to shipping them out from within the US. So, as an extra incentive to buy the domestic version made in Japan of an international artist's album, things like bonus tracks, remixes, or DVD material are usually added to Japanese editions of albums. It increases revenue for the artist, keeps back-end costs down, supports both domestic and international growth, and is a great marketing tactic that still more or less remains the same today. However, in the case of K-pop albums, if you don't produce K-pop albums in Japan, what's another way to creative incentive to buy and access that big money-making music industry within that country? Analyze your own music and sing entirely in Japanese and drop albums there, which you can do with DistroKid. DistroKid is one of the top-tier music distribution platforms on the market for independent artists, helping musicians like you and me get our music up on streaming services fast without breaking the bank. DistroKid is really cool because not only does it get your music up on places like Apple Music, Tidal, and Spotify, it also helps you promote your tracks, analyze your songs, and even connect with others. One of its amazingly useful tools is DistroKid's AI bot named Dave. Dave analyzes your music not to critique it or call it bad names, but provide valuable insight to your songs and how it sounds. This is incredibly useful if you're ever in a situation where you can't remember the beats per minute or key that your song is in. Dave can tell you if your song is acoustic or dancey, and even give it an energy rating, which can give you an idea on how your track might make fans feel when they hear it for the first time. Dave can even tell if it contains talking or was recorded in a studio or live. Dave can also give your track a valence rating to give it some descriptive keywords on how you could also describe your music too. Dave sounds pretty simple, and it is, but the info it provides is very, very helpful if you get stuck. Use my special VIP link to save yourself 7% on your first year's membership with DistroKid. Link is in the description. The second generation of K-pop begins around 2003-2004 and lasts until around 2012. This generation is directly linked to the creation and rise of social media, the Great Recession, Hurricane Katrina, Pluto losing its planet status, and K-pop's first giant leap into international markets. Seeing the debut of acts like Super Junior, Big Bang, Girls' Generation, TVXQ, Wonder Girls, 21, 2AM, 2PM, SHINee, IU, 4 Minute, Brown Eyed Girls, Kara, and so many others, this is where the creation and foundation of modern K-pop and K-pop fan culture truly begins. The millennial generation are the pioneers of the Wild West days of the internet, building the playground that we know it in its fully constructed form today. No other generation grew with the internet as it developed in real time from the start. The majority of Gen X had their adolescence entirely without it, and the majority of Gen Z was born after the internet received widespread use. That's not a dig at either side, it's just how time works. Which means, for better or worse, Gen 2 K-pop was the first generation to be directly affected by and altered by internet culture. In good ways, this manifested itself in the form of light sticks, the first one designed for Big Bang by its member G-Dragon. Consequently, the Black Ocean and online fan wars truly began here. It led to the creation of viral fan cams, one of the first being of Girls' Generation member Yuri during a performance of O. That also led to hyper-criticism and online bullying as well. The Triple Crown for winning #1 on Music Bank, Music Core, and Inkigayo was first awarded to A-Pink during Love promotions. Photo cards, world tours beyond the Asian continent, performing on American late-night TV, and even a Japanese dome tour all stem from this generation of K-pop. This video would be hours long if we zoomed into every little aspect of every K-pop act during this time that broke a barrier for the industry. But basically, from radio to Tumblr, the second generation of K-pop set a multitude of standards for the industry because of the technological revolution it grew alongside. Following Psy's infamous video for Gangnam Style going viral around the globe, 2013 to 2018 saw the dawn of K-pop's third generation. This generation is tied directly to the globalization of K-pop and the rise of streaming replacing the digital download and decrease in the sales of physical music during the coming of age Gen Z. This is when K-pop became a well-oiled machine, churning out groups faster than ever via training periods or survival shows. It's where K-pop became a well-known thing amidst historical changes like same-sex marriage becoming law in the USA, the Ice Bucket Challenge, the Paris Agreement to fight climate change, Brexit, women's marches in the Me Too movement, share economy with things like Uber and Airbnb, and so much more as the 2010s developed. The mega careers began for acts like BTS, Blackpink, GOT7, 17, NCT, Red Velvet, Monsta X, iKON, Twice, and so many more. Gen 2 acts, of course, still thrived throughout this generation, but younger audiences craved their own identity, and a lot of Gen 2 groups either broke up, took hiatuses, or did other projects, leaving the gears of time to shift into new positions when millennials grew up and Gen Z became the new target demographic. Every generation wants music that they can relate to, and as the world was increasingly becoming more together online, record-breaking achievements began to occur at lightning speeds. Fans discovered the internet could effectively force the growth and inclusion abroad of their favorite K-pop acts, and soon enough, K-pop and Western crossovers became more commonplace, even getting K-pop onto the radio as BTS became an undeniably important historical figure for the industry. If Gen 3 is the globalization of K-pop, Generation 4 is the group where K-pop has already been a well-known thing in foreign markets, nearly as intermixed in music circles as UK artists are on American radio. radio. In other words, the question of why K-pop wouldn't be included in foreign music affairs is tied to Gen 4. Beginning in 2019 and still undergoing development, Generation 4's biggest historical moments so far are the COVID-19 pandemic and the world reaching 8 billion people. By this point in time, K-pop regularly is included on American late night TV or morning TV. World tours, Japan Dome tours, photo cards, fan chants, music shows, a focus on streaming records, all of it has already been a thing. Debuting acts like ITZY, IVE, New Jeans, aespa, Stray Kids, Everglow, Luna, ENHYPEN, G-Idol, Tomorrow and Together, Stacy, Purple Kiss, Kepler, Billy, NMIXX, ATEEZ, and so many more are redefining the K-pop industry by navigating established waters with so much more room to grow. That's not to imply that this generation is any less unique than its predecessor. They've been tasked with standing out when K-pop is arguably its most competitive. Not a simple mission by any means. Every generation of K-pop has more than one thing that it offers in uniqueness and innovation based on and tied to whatever challenges history presents them. The concept of K-pop generations even became a thing because watching the gears of time click into second gear and having the development of watching that happen remain traceable on the internet in real time stems from the millennial generation that grew with the internet. In other words, the K-pop that we know and love today, as we know it to be today, stems back from the second generation of K-pop, and Kara plays a significant role into why that is and why it still matters. Kara is one of the top 10 best-selling K-pop girl groups of all time, selling over 4.5 million physical albums and 30 million digital singles to date. While that might not sound as impressive today when we hear millions and billions daily, but let's put this into perspective. In 2011, about 48 hours worth of video were uploaded to YouTube every minute. In 2022, that number exceeded 330,000 hours of video being uploaded to YouTube every single minute, a 687,400% increase. In 2012, there were less than a billion active users on YouTube, and now there are over 2.6 billion active users on the platform. Nearly 32% of the entire world's population has a YouTube channel now. 500 million views in 2012 is the equivalent of Baby Shark's 10 billion views today. The world was only just beginning to become as connected as it is today, so it's not that Gen 2 K-pop acts weren't as popular as Gen 3 and 4. They were. Only the tools we use to measure and define what success looks like have evolved and changed. Kara did not start out very successfully. In fact, their first album was considered a commercial flop and drew comparisons to their predecessors Finkel. After He left the group due to her parents' pressure, Gohara and Jiyoung joined the group and helped shape Kara into what they are known as today. Honey was their first #1 hit in 2009, but they had another trick up their sleeve that would act as a precursor to what was possible in K-pop during a time when BoA was still being ignored by Western media in the US. Mr. was a massive hit for Kara, and its accompanying dance became a viral sensation, as viral videos were just starting to become a thing. BoA's success in Japan left the door open for groups to try their luck if they could sing in the language, to which Kara really said, "Thank you, I will," and debuted in Japan, where Mr. hit #1 on iTunes Japan for video and song. They became the first Korean girl group to reach #5 on the Oricon Weekly Singles Chart. A parody of Mr. was featured in Naruto spin-off Rock Lee and His Ninja Pals, Kamen Rider Fourze, and even Doraemon. It also went on to sell over 1 million digital singles and be certified by the RIAJ, which was brand new territory for K-pop girl groups. Basically, K-pop stars making their Japanese debuts became commonplace because Kara helped seal the business deals between Korea and Japan that made the world's second largest music market possible to access. Now you might be asking yourself, why though? One viral hit doesn't make you the reason something's possible. Yeah, okay, we'll just ignore Psy there for a minute. Luckily, it wasn't their only breakthrough. Far from it, actually. Kara's first #1 single in Japan, Jet Coaster Love, helped them become the first foreign female group since the creation of the Oricon charts to rank #1 on the first week of its release. They were also the first girl group in 30 years to do so at all since the Nolans, and all of the proceeds of Jet Coaster Love went to Japan's natural disaster relief aid after the 2011 Tohoku earthquake. Kara became Japan's #1 rookie artist of 2010 by Oricon as Mr. went on to sell over 2 million units there, and Jumping also passed surpassed 1.5 million sales, making them the only K-pop artist to have 2 singles achieve RIAJ million certifications. They became the first Korean artist ever to break sales of 100,000 copies of their albums since the 90s, not once, but twice with Kara Best and Girls Talk. The Karasia tour in Japan, in which they were the first K-pop girl group to ever be invited to perform at the Tokyo Dome, sold out in under 5 minutes, beating Janet Jackson's record of selling out in 7 minutes. They were the first K-pop artist to get their own Japanese drama with Urakawa. Kara was the first celebrity in all of Asia to launch their own perfume, the Kara 5 Jewel, in partnership with 3CY, where Kara personally flew to France to pick the fruity, floral, and woody notes. Kara also became the first Korean idol group to launch their own toy doll brand based on themselves, and Kara Best Clips is the highest selling DVD by a K-pop girl group. Kara is the reason Psy's win streak ended on music shows while Gangnam Style was still viral when Pandora won in 2012. They were the highest earning K-pop artist of 2011, reaching over $65 million US, which, to put in perspective, YG Entertainment generated roughly the same amount that year, but as an entire company. Kara also got their own anime, the first K-pop artist ever, with Kara the Animation, and when they operated a bakery for the Kara Bakery Show, all of the proceeds were donated to charity. They were the first and only group not from YG, SM, or JYP to rank in the top 5 of Forbes Korea Power Celebrity list in 2012. They won New Artist of the Year at the Japan Gold Disc Awards, Best Global Female Group at the Mamas, beating 21 and SNSD, won Most Popular International Group at the 2013 China Music Awards, beating 21, Big Bang, and One Direction. Their Korean album Step immediately topped various music charts in South Korea hours after its release. They won the Asia Star Award at the 7th Asia Models Awards ceremony, which is only given to entertainers who play a pivotal role in spreading Asian culture. They are only the 3rd Korean artist to ever sell over 1 million physical singles in Japan, behind TVXQ and BoA, and were the first K-pop girl group to achieve 10 top 5 singles in Japan. And in spite of their member changes and focus on the Japanese market, every single Korean title track from 2009 to 2015 got at least 1 music show win, proving that K-pop girl groups can dominate multiple markets at the same time. Now, this is just a snapshot of Kara's career, and an even smaller snapshot of the contributions to music from K-pop's second generation. This video is not designed to take away anything from one generation, but if BTS, quote, paved the way, as we hear every time they make a milestone achievement, then Gens 1 and 2 deserve to be recognized as the shovels, gravel, water, dirt, hard hats, workers, pickaxes, and foundation that lies under the road that's been paved. You maybe can't see it all the time, but it's still the reason a road even exists. Someone had to dig it out. Where the road stretches out and how far it goes is just as important, because a bridge without a road on top of it is just a bunch of supports. Both things work together to facilitate easier access for people who come after the bridge is built to use it. Generation 2 saw a lot of innovation in K-pop that still remains a staple today. And in true millennial fashion, in an era where music industry standards are consistently challenged and outdated methods are being thrown out, 2022 saw the historic return of many of these Gen 2 titans: Big Bang, Sistar, 21, Girls' Generation, and now Kara. Post-agency arrangements and reunions showing the current generations that a bond between artist and fan is forever, even when people say you should be yesterday's news or that you've aged out of the music industry. Dynamics don't have to change just because you're older. You still deserve a spot at the table because you're the reason people even have a table to sit at to begin with. And when you come back, it's not about breaking records and getting 500 million views on your comeback single in 24 hours, because the value of even getting a 15th anniversary or longer means so much more. Basically, the resurgence of Gen 2 groups continuing on successfully post-breakup or hiatus or agency should show everyone that the pioneers of the internet still have ground to break, so more of the road can be paved in the future. Kara's return with Move Again, both in Korean and Japanese, adds fuel to the fiery notion that just because a generation has clicked into a new gear doesn't mean the generation is over. The same goes for K-pop's 3rd generation and eventually 4th. BTS will someday finish their military service, Twice members will probably probably cycle through solos. Blackpink will still be a household name long after their contracts end and whatever happens there, but eventually time circles back around. 4th gen K-pop will never stop learning from Gen 3, 2, and 1, even if they don't relate to every song's sound or message. But we're seeing that groups can return successfully because Gen 2 groups like Kara are proving it's possible. By Kara dropping a 15th anniversary album in both Korean and Japanese, they're showing just how important the ground that they initially broke is to remember. Without the innovations of Gen 2 K-pop, there would be no Japanese debuts, no photo cards, no light sticks, no late night TV performances, world tours, conversations, new friends online finding each other via K-pop as a shared interest, and so much more. So if you ever get lonely or sad as you grow up because your favorite artist is doing different things, look to acts like Kara to see what might be possible in the future. Even if it takes longer than you're used to, keep holding on because some people come back.